Since losing Trae Young, the Atlanta Hawks have gone on a winning streak, with Jalen Johnson looking better and better with each game and unlocking something else from one of the role guys. I think it has been made more and more clear now that Jalen Johnson is who this team should be giving the keys to. So today we talk about why Jalen Johnson should be the franchise guy for the Atlanta Hawks. And it all starts by looking at what he brings as a scorer. Obviously, one of the biggest advantages with Jalen Johnson as a scorer is going to be his size and his ability, right? So just able to finish alley-oops like this is going to be big in the transition game. Ricochet gets the ball out to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who misses, but Jalen Johnson, again, is able to just go in and finish the play. He's always involved, which I think is important, because when you compare it to a guy like Trae Young, where one of his biggest flaws was that he would sort of get out of the play, become disinterested, then things would get a little bit nasty. But then I love a play like this from Jalen Johnson, right? He waits to get to the 3-ball line, right? Gathers, Ryan Dunn jumps, goes downhill, and Royce O'Neal's the only dude even there, and he's able to just slam it at the rim. Jalen Johnson's rim pressure has been actually really, really good. According to Cleaning the Glass, he's about 70% at the rim this year, and he's still able to kill you with the 3-ball. I think what he's been able to apply at the rim is something, obviously, I don't think this Hawks team has had to the same level, just due to the sheer size problem. But again, when you actually look at Jalen Johnson's shot die compared, it's more at the rim, midi, and then 3. Right, he's maximizing what he's good at with shooting, which is not necessarily the highest volume as a 3-point shooter, but he's also doing a good job getting downhill, forcing defenses to respect that, right? Like, I love that play there where you're forcing basically Colin Gillespie to have to guard Jalen Johnson at the line and is able to just get a piece, right? Then he's able to just start running. He waits, does a great job, gathers, and gets the piece for the and one. What Jalen Johnson has been able to unlock as a scorer, I think, might not have been as possible when Trae Young is here. And I think, again, the way he scores provides, I think, just some more versatility for this team. Because, right, they have the shooters, per se, right? You've got dudes like Luke Cornett off the bench. Ricochet's proven to be a decent shooter. Obviously, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think it's becoming more and more evident the way they play is really suited for how Jalen Johnson plays, quite frankly, which is I can go downhill, and if there's an opportunity for someone else, I can help generate that. And speaking of that, let's talk about Jalen Johnson, the passer and playmaker. Jalen Johnson, I think, is really showing, too, that ability to be the primary ball handler and facilitator. Like, this is just a tough pass, right? He's able to just weave it through the entirety of that team to the corner for Ricochet for the 3. Johnson does a great job, and I love this play because it deceives everybody. He goes downhill. It's clear it looks like he's going to go to the wing. So everyone sort of jumps instinctively to stop it, but he's able to then instead get it up to his big in Gay and just immediately can get that reverse layup. I think the way Jalen Johnson has been able to manipulate defenses with his size has been honestly really impressive. And we saw flashes of this over the last few years, and it's only continuing to show why I think if the keys are given to him and he can be their franchise guy for right now, this team might be able to really go on a nice little run, try and get into the playoffs. And at that point, you never know, especially with the shape of the East, quite frankly. But I love here, right? He's able to just collapse the team, gets it out to the corner easy. Again, Johnson makes the easy reads, and sometimes that's all you need. Just gets to that line, waits, gets it out to the guy at the corner. What Jalen Johnson's been able to provide as a passer and playmaker. Obviously, Trae Young is still better at that. I want that to be made evidently clear. This is not me saying Trae Young is a worse passer and playmaker than Jalen Johnson. No, but I also think that Jalen Johnson is a damn good creator for himself and for others that I don't think this team is necessarily craving that Trae Young level playmaking right now. And I love this too because the defensive effort, right? Johnson gets a piece, throws it up, and that's not always something you're going to get with Trae because Trae is usually the one picked on. So at that point, everyone else has to cover it up. But again, now you get Johnson to work out of that mid-range, right? Forces Markkanen to come over. Waits for the cutter in Dyson Daniels. I just think the way that Jalen Johnson is able to demand attention through his 3 levels of scoring is really, really, really deadly for this Hawks team and for teams that are playing them, because Jalen Johnson, we're seeing, can go for 30 to 40 point triple doubles on a night, right? So you can't just go, well, let's live with him scoring because he might only end up with 25. No, he can drop 30. So then it's the others get involved and this team really starts to get it flowing. And that's where I think this Hawks team is showing their impact because of the way Jalen Johnson has been able to take over as their primary passer and playmaker. Because even here, recovers and just immediately can get it up to their big man. and they can keep playing. And then let's talk about Jalen Johnson as a defender. I think it's clear that with a player like Jalen Johnson, right, he's always going to be involved defensively just because of his frame and his size. But I think that, again, what this Hawks team has sort of been lacking, when you think about it, why they acquire guys like Dyson Daniels or back in the day with DeJounte Murray, it was the hopes that they were going to get more defense to generate offense. And I think that with Jalen Johnson at the helm, again, because Trae Young isn't there to necessarily always get picked on, I think that's where this team can get a little bit scared. Because again, Jalen Johnson here just completely cuts off that pass, gets down the lane for the slam, and is able to keep the Hawks going. I think that with Jalen Johnson being, one of the best defenders on the team, evidently clear that the way this Hawks team is playing is going to be much, much better suited for a team like the Hawks. Because again, Jalen Johnson, his size, his frame, he's always going to be involved and keep things going to try and make this team the best that it can. So I think, frankly, when you look at it, the way that he scores, the way that scoring then helps the others on this team to facilitate, combined with the fact that at that point, the guy you're giving the keys to is still a good defender and is active in passing lanes, I think that with that alone warrants the discussion of whether or not the franchise should be his in terms of giving the keys, which we'll talk about right now. Jalen Johnson, I think, should be the franchise player for the Atlanta Hawks. Now, you might be saying, but Emster, what does that mean for Trae Young? Well, it's one of a few things. Either you kind of let Trae kind of play this contract out and you let him walk, which I don't necessarily think is the best idea in the world, just because, again, you probably could get some picks and value from him. I also think you very much do look towards that possibility of a trade because, again, to me, what Jalen Johnson has shown in terms of helping the Hawks become more of a two-way team, the way that this offense looks and flows without a guy like Trae Young, because again, Jalen Johnson can play off the ball. They're a top 10 defense right now, and I guarantee you that would not be the case if Trae Young played all these games. Now, their offense is 19, but they're also 12th in net rating. So this team is still pretty good. Like, they're not a bad team. And I think that part of it is ultimately Trae and the way he plays and doesn't really play off the ball doesn't help this team. The way that Jalen Johnson runs both ends of the floor is more suited for right now what this roster is. He's able to then help guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dyson Daniels, Mohamed Gay, Onyeka Okongwu, Risa Shea even though he just got hurt, I believe. So, prayers up. Some of these guys, I think, play better with the way that Jalen Johnson can move because he also will be willing to stand by and let them sort of do their game while still at times putting his head down and going, move out the way. I'm going to get us either a bucket or I'm going to make a play for us. And I think that the way that Jalen Johnson does it is just more beneficial. So if I'm the GM of the Atlanta Hawks, I am moving forward with the mindset of Jalen Johnson is our guy. Like, that is our number one. That is who, when we draft, we think of him in our mind and not necessarily to draft as if we're playing around Trae Young. I think that Jalen Johnson is very clearly making the case, not only that he's going to be an all-star this year, but I mean, just the way he's playing, he's showing that he is the number one guy on this team, which I don't think people necessarily expected. So let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my assessment that the Atlanta Hawks should be ready to hand over the keys to Jalen Johnson, or do you guys think that this is still Trae Young's team? As always, guys, this was Emster Knows Hoops. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Your support has been incredible. Appreciate each and every one of you. Have a beautiful rest of your day, guys. Peace out.